Hey guys, Jack's your free auto mechanic. Today I'm just going to show you how to do a simple brake inspection. It's pretty much the same on most vehicles. First thing you want to do is jack it up, get the wheel off so that you can take a look at what's on the inside there. Once you get the wheel off, you'll want to turn the steering wheel all the way to one side that gives you the most access to your brake caliper. One of the things I like to do is just take my hand and check the inside and the outside of the rotor, and I feel some grooves a little thicker on the inside than the outside. So we're going to go ahead and take the caliper off. There's two bolts, one on top, one on bottom. And before I do that, I like to take a pry bar, put it inside here against the rotor, just apply enough pressure it frees up the caliper just a little bit. All it's doing is compressing the pistons in. This particular caliper has two pistons in it, so it doesn't have to be moved a lot. And you can see that it's free. And you're going to want to remove the bolts. On this vehicle, it's a Chevy pickup truck, 2006, 19 millimeter. I've already loosened this one up. You can lift it up. You don't have to take the other bolt out if you don't want to. The outer pad doesn't look too terrible. What you want to look for, obviously, is for excessive wear, and you also want to look for any signs of cracking in there. This one's got a little bit on there, but not too excessive. I've noticed that my inside pad was a little harder to move and get out of the way, so that may have been causing me an issue along the way. It makes it kind of stick and hang up inside the caliper itself. The piston's not frozen, but the slides on the caliper. So what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to clean up the top, the portion of the pad on the end and on the slides. These are metallic, so I'm going to clean those up, and then I'm going to apply some what they call seal glide or brake ease. Some people like to use silicone. Whatever works that allows it to move. And that should help us out a bunch. But you can see there's still a little bit of life left on that pad. Well, zoom in here a little. You can see the inside of the pads. Doesn't look too terrible. This is the one that's set right here. It's not the easiest to tell, but there's a little bit of a crack here, but not bad. But you can see this groove right here. That's letting you know that there's plenty of pad left. Now, sometimes you can see that through the holes on the caliper. This one I couldn't, but without removing the pads, you can look down and see how much material life is left. And you can get all the way down to this port right here and still have at least 5,000 miles left on these pads. I do want to show you the rotors. Oh, there's one of my chickens running loose. It's out for a stroll. So I want to show you this rotor. This side doesn't look too bad at all. And there's a tiny lip on this edge. On the other side, that way you can tell, but there's quite a bit bigger lip on this side. So I'll probably end up replacing these, and when I do, I'll put some new pads on at the same time. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take just a brass bristle brush or copper bristle, whatever that is, any kind of wire brush you got. This one just kind of looks like a toothbrush. And I'm going to clean the inside of these metal plates. Now you can take them off if you want to. Might make it a little easier for you. And then you can put them in a vise, but you just want to run that across there. Shouldn't be too difficult. You can see they're not rusted or anything. Just want to get those parts nice and clean. Sometimes you can get some excessive rust develop on the caliper itself, and it actually pushes this plate up. And if that's the case, you want to make sure that any of that is out of the way as well. And then you want to go ahead and do the top part too. Hi, chicken. I guess even the chickens are curious what I'm doing. And the tops usually don't get too much rust on the caliper because moisture doesn't tend to cling upward. Next, I'm going to take and clean up the pads, the edges. Now, if they're not sticking too much, you don't really need to clean them up too bad. But I know this one was sticking pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and take this to a grinding wheel on the bench and just knock just a little bit off the edge. So I've got a grinding wheel that I can just take a little bit off. If you don't have one, if you just got a regular file, you could take a file to it, just clean it up. And if you don't have that, you can rub it on the concrete. You're not having to take so much off that it just flops around in there and makes a bunch of noise. We're just trying to keep it from sticking. You can see I just took enough off just to clean it up a little bit, and that should be good enough. Now that we've got that part taken care of, you can use this brake parts lubricant. This is a little more expensive, or if you got some Seal Glide or just some regular old universal grease, you can put that on there. It doesn't have to be anything super fancy. I've got some of this. This stuff works pretty well. It's silicone based, but it's non-hardening. You can use this to put on your slides, and you can also use it to put on the back of your brake pads. And you can put it right here if it's making a little chatter noise, and it'll help it stay in place. And you'd be surprised how well it works. Now, some pads come with silicone already on the back. You can see this extra backing plate. Some don't. And you don't have to put a whole great bunch on there, just a little bit, just enough that it can slide. And if you want to go overkill, you can put some on the ends of it. And it's not really going to make that much of a difference. And something I like to do is just spin the rotor a little bit, make sure you didn't get any extra on the edge of the rotor. And when you get ready to install them, you saw how difficult they were to come out. And what we're looking for is for them to go in a lot smoother, easier. So that they'll slide around. They should be able to slide in and out fairly easy. And of course you'll want to do this side too. Make sure you get the edges with the lubricant. It doesn't have to be perfectly clean. I mean, there's going to be all kinds of brake dust on it. It's non-hardening lubricant, and that's what it is. It's just a lubricant. And this is pretty much the same thing you'd be doing if you were replacing the pads. You can just put those on there. And if you needed to replace the rotors and the pads, the only other thing you would do, since these aren't bolted on, would be to remove these other two bolts on the back side that hold this caliper bracket on. You'd set that off to the side, put it back on, and you'd compress your pistons before you put them on. And I'll show you how to do that in a different video. And you don't need to do that on here because the same pads are on there, so you don't need the extra space. You want to make sure that the caliper does move, and it does move in and out on the slide, so that's a good thing. This slide moves. Then we can just put it back together. Put our bolt back in. One very important thing that you need to remember, since we did compress the piston some, is before you move the vehicle, you need to make sure that you pump up that brake pedal. Otherwise it'll just start moving and you won't stop when you hit the brake pedal. So make sure you pump up the brake pedal once you get your wheels and everything put back the way it's supposed to be. Now that you got the caliper back on, you need to bolt your wheel back on, let the jack down. You get in the driver's seat, first thing you want to do is pump up the brake pedal. That way you don't have any issues, because we did press the pistons out a little bit. That'll bring the pistons back in where they were, and then you can go back to driving it just fine. Thanks for watching my brake inspection video. See you next time.